things and just ask the question, well, what's the point? So the first thing I thought we would look at is the quiz time that we have at a children's meeting. You know, I wonder, what do you think the point is? Why do we have quiz at a children's story? What do you think? What do you think, Ross?
See if they're listening.
To see if they're listening, okay. What else?
Oh, it's still me.
What, Ross?
Is it still me you're asking?
No, anybody? What? Any reason? Why do we have a quiz? Chloe, do you know why? Yeah, to recap on what we've learnt. Is it boring? Is it a boring thing? Do the kids like the quiz?
Yes.
Is it their favourite part or their least favourite? Yeah, it's usually their favourite part, the quiz. Is it a quiet activity?
No.
No, it's usually very loud. There's a lot of activity and really the kids love it. But you know, as much as the kids love it and as much as it's their favourite part and all the rest of it, it's not just about fun. A children's meeting, before we go any further, we'll just say that a children's meeting is not, it's not just to fill time. Did I spell that right? Fill time. It's not, oh, we've another 15 minutes, so what we'll do, sure, we'll make the quiz longer. You know, it's not just to fill time, it's not just to have a fun time, it's not just that, oh sure, we'll do this, everything else is a bit boring, we'll put in a bit of fun. And it's not just something, we were talking earlier on about stocking fillers. Now, who gets a stocking at Christmas? Does anybody? Oh yeah, Benjamin, Chloe, yeah, we all, do you? Yeah. So some of us get stocking fillers, we love to find out what's in the stocking filler. But that's not our main present, sure it's not. You get the wee things, maybe you get a wee DVD in there. Or if you're really old like Paul, maybe in the olden days you got a mandarin orange or something like that there. Do you know? So everybody gets things different in their stocking. But it's not just a small thing. The quiz isn't just a wee small thing that you throw in to fill it out. The quiz is actually very important. So we'll look at what's the point of a quiz. And we touched on some of them there. So if you have your worksheet, you can fill these in as you're going along. There's two main boxes there. So the first thing is to recap. It's to recap the story. Sorry, my markers are beginning to fade. It's to recap the story. So, say for example, say if Rachel was given the story, she'd have gone through her lesson, and then it comes to the quiz. Now what happens, because it's noisy, because it's the favourite time, often the kids can get a little bit loud, and as you're coming with the quiz, it's your opportunity really to go over the main points of the story. So it's important that when you're writing your questions, you're bringing in the story, so as you're saying the question, as you're presenting your questions, it's actually going in for the second time. If Rachel was telling the story about Jesus feeding the 5,000, and he used, how many loaves and fishes, does anyone know? 5 loaves and 2 fishes. 5 loaves and 2 fishes. So Rachel was saying that in the story. So then, when it would come to the quiz, you would ask a very simple question. How many loaves and fishes did Jesus use? And the children should hopefully remember 5 and 2. So not only are you asking a question, you're given the same information twice. You're reinforcing the story. So really that's the other word. It's not just recap, it's to reinforce the story. Okay? Not only that, like any quiz, it's to assess if the children are listening, isn't it? So we want to assess if they've heard and if they've understood. Assess the children's learning. So before they come out in, they maybe didn't know the story. Hopefully by the time they're leaving, they will know. Because they'll have heard it the first time, but they'll be hearing it a second time during the quiz. Now we're going to be touching on these a wee bit more as we go through the worksheet. So the main point is recap the story and assess the children's learning. It's Did the spell assess right, Polly? Assess the children's learning, thank you very much. That's helpful. Where's the apostrophe go? Very good. Okay. So if I were to say, Chloe, you're on quiz this Thursday. Okay, so this Thursday is children's meeting. Chloe, you're on quiz. So there's a few things that you would have to do in preparation. So that's what we're going to look at to help you. If you're asked to do quiz, what do you have to do? So you've a number of boxes there. The first one is quite small. The first thing you would have to do, you're on quiz. What do you have to do? Can you think of what you would have to do if you were on quiz this week?
Think of a game.
Think of a game, that's right. So the first thing you have to do is you think of a game or a quiz idea. Now, we've got very lazy in our club because we keep going back to the old favourites that we were doing back, I don't know how many years ago. But if you were to go online, if you were to Google quiz ideas for children's ministry, you would get hundreds of ideas. So that's what I want you to start doing. Instead of us keep going back to the old ones and using the old ones, we will try and get new ones. Okay, so that's the quiz idea. So it's the night of the quiz, you know your game or whatever that you're going to use. So then what's the next thing that you would have to do if you were quiz master for the night? Questions. So during the story, okay, so the second thing you have to do if you're quiz master is get some questions while the person's telling the story. But what I just want to remind you, sometimes the person who's on the story may already have questions attached to their story, and they'll say, Leah, here's the questions, and they'll hand you the questions. You have to be very careful, because what can happen is although the person telling the story may have it written down that they have to say that Jesus went out very early into the boat, so they give you their notes and they give you questions, but when they actually come to tell the story, they might just say Jesus went out onto his boat. What did they forget to say? Very early. So you have a question, you're not paying attention, so when it's your turn to come up and do the quiz, you might say, what time of the day did Jesus go out on the boat? And the children don't know the answer because actually they weren't told. So really, if people already give you questions that are attached to the story, you still have to listen in case they omit certain things that are on the worksheet. So you have to draw up questions. So what are a couple of things that you need to be aware of when you're making your questions for a quiz? What do you need to consider? The age group. That's right. The age group. You need to consider the age group and also the number of children there. So that means you're not going to be doing 10 questions for each group because the children are going to get bored. If only a few people are involved, they'll be distracted and it will be hard to contain it. So you need to make your questions age appropriate, not too difficult that the children haven't got a clue, and not too simple that you just have to try. And that comes with practice, and if you're not too sure, then ask one of the other leaders. Okay, so say you come and you're asking questions. Well, actually, we'll do that bit a wee bit later on. Okay, so what else do you have to do then? Your own quiz. You've written down your questions. Is that you over for the night? You've written your questions. What's next? You have to play the game. You actually have to read out your questions. Read out your questions, and actually do the quiz. So you may need to ask for volunteers. Beforehand, if you need someone to come and help, you need to have asked them to help. So when it comes to reading out your questions, remember we said before that the main point and the most important thing about quiz is to recap the story. You need to be clear, you need to give the information so that the children know exactly what you're asking. And even your question, it's jogging their memory, so they'll remember what they're being taught. So you're reinforcing the story. If I were to ask Chloe, as it happened the other week, she was asked a question at the front of church, she didn't know the answer. What do you do if a child doesn't know the answer? They put their hand up, okay, yes, and they ask them and they don't know. Now, sometimes we get flustered because we don't want to embarrass the children. It just comes from experience. You probably know the child. If they're not going to get too embarrassed, you just say, okay, we'll move on, and you just move on. You don't labour on the point that they don't know the answer. If they get the question wrong, you can say, oh, that's a really good answer, but that's not what I'm looking for. There's lots of things you can say. You don't just say, no, move on, don't crush them. Move on, be nice about it, but you're trying to draw out the answer. So I've asked, how many loaves, how many fish did Jesus have how many? So Chloe has whispered it very gently. I've heard her, but everybody else hasn't. So that's not the point. So I need to say, yes, Chloe, that's correct. Jesus had 5 loaves and 2 fishes. What am I doing? I'm reinforcing the story again. That's the point of the quiz. It's not just fun. It's not just a time filler. Reinforcing the story. So what I've noticed is happening is children are given the answers. Nobody can hear because they're so shy. So it's up to the person, up to the quizmaster to say it, reinforce it so everyone can hear that they've got the right answer. Anything else? What else has to happen? Oh, this is the easy job. We have someone keeping score. So they're keeping score. You get a friend to do that. If you're really good, you can do all of the jobs by yourself, or you can ask friends to help. And then we come, the big star at the bottom there. Your quiz is over, the children have answered all your questions, and you have a winner.